And I remember being so scared and petrified that when I used to put the clothes on the mannequins or hang up the clothes, I used to just freeze like a mannequin and hope that no one saw me. Do you know what I mean? No one asked me any questions. But now I had to realize that, right, no, I need to overcome this. It's like, I can't just be chilling like a mannequin. They can't pay a mannequin to do the job.
Hi and welcome to the 5th episode of the Right Route Series 1.
That's Liam. He is an e-products manager and host of the Get Work Savvy podcast.
And that's Kayode. He's a professional speaker, entrepreneur and star of the BBC's The Apprentice.
If you've missed episodes 1 to 4, go back and check them out. In today's episode, we'll be discussing resilience in the workplace.
So have you ever been at school or at work and felt a little uncomfortable with a situation? Or have you just left school and you're a bit anxious about starting a new course or even a new job?
We have some fantastic advice from industry experts about how to overcome possible fears, hurdles, or setbacks you may have come across from taking the next steps in your career.
So on this main section of the Right Route podcast, today we're going to be speaking with Kayode again.
Hey guys.
Excellent. And we're just talking on the subject of resilience in the workplace today. So having that mental toughness. And I mean, I think it's quite useful today to jump into a question that you've already got, because I think that'll lead us on to some other things.
I mean, of course, it is probably a big one for a lot of people, because I have no doubt that in a 365-day period, someone's at least had a bad day at work, and it's how can they overcome that? So, for example, someone says that a manager who is just really in everyone's case for no reason, how do you cope with that?
Well, if it's no reason, if they're like picking on people without any grounds, if they're asking people to do above and beyond or just particularly a bit nasty, you have always got HR to speak to. I know with some smaller employees you might not have a HR department, but you could go and seek some advice from a citizens advice bureau or something like that. But what I would suggest is try and have that conversation with them to figure out what it is that you can do to improve the relationship you have. It depends on the person though, because it might be that that's just who they are. In which case you got to kind of find a way with dealing with it. If it was me, I'd kind of go into overdrive to try and prove that person wrong, to not give them an excuse.
If it was me, I'll flip a table and say, "What is your problem?" Okay, I don't know. I mean, another question we've had on this one, then it's less bad in that sense of manager. It's more about the individual. This person sent a question in saying, but they need help with just getting up and doing it. I know it sounds petty, but finding that motivation was hard for me.
I mean, for me, I don't know if you agree, Kayode, but if you're finding it difficult to get up and be motivated, is what you're doing really what you should be doing, if that makes sense?
Unless it's a bad manager again.
Yeah, could well be. But in which case, could you potentially be on the lookout for something that is a similar thing, but in a different setting, different environment? I mean, for me, if it was that it's just there's nothing particularly wrong at work, it's just they haven't got the motivation, are they in a position that is right for them, is kind of what I...
Yeah, that's true. Okay, yeah, if you're generally not motivated, there's a reason you're not motivated. I mean, there's a genuine reason. If, like you said, that everything is okay, the manager's cool, everyone at work's cool, colleagues are cool, but you're just not motivated, and yes, maybe not the job. Your icky guy, as we spoke about in episode 1, isn't satisfied. Absolutely,
and it could be that it might be some stuff that's going on at home, or it might be some external influences. So try and have that kind of overall picture of where you're at, and have some honest kind of conversations with yourself about, is there a particular reason why you're not motivated in that particular way?
Yeah. I remember my first day at, I was working at Charlton Athletic Football Club, the Valley Superstore, the Valley being a stadium name, and I was in the Superstore. I remember I had to have resilience because I was 16, so I remember fresh out, I think maybe I might have even been symbol at school at that time, but just being 16. Saturday job, I used to work the home games in the Valley Superstore in a club shop. And first day, I've arrived now, I'm on the shop floor. But just the way, because it's a football game, it's quiet before all the fans come. So quiet, I'm like, yeah, this is easy, I can easily do this job. And all of a sudden, just before kickoff, whoosh, everybody's coming to buy this shirt, that shirt, that shirt. And I remember being so scared and petrified that when I used to put the clothes on the mannequins or hang up the clothes, I used to just freeze like a mannequin and hope that no one saw me. Do you know what I mean? No one asked me any questions. But now I had to realize that, right, no, I need to overcome this. It's like, I can't just be chilling like a mannequin. They can't pay a mannequin to do their job. Do you know what I mean? You know the mannequin challenge that came out a few years ago? I did a really good one of those because I was a mannequin in the Valley Superstore. But yes, I really had to overcome that and to be like, right, be social. Hi, what size would you like? Hi, you're right there. What are you asking? What do you want for today? Are you looking for whistles or just a hat? Okay, no problem. You know, these little things. But at the beginning, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. And again, because the nature of the football game is quiet again when the game's on, because everyone's in the stadium. But then after the game again, whoosh. So because I was just thrown in right in at the deep end with just customers, I guess very quickly had to overcome that. I can't even remember why I left that job, you know, I don't even remember a formality. Maybe I'm still on the books there, you know, but I can't ever remember. I can't remember. I know I got fired and I don't remember leaving. I don't know what happened there, actually.
You're not still receiving a paycheck.
Yeah, maybe I am. I'm not too sure. Maybe I am.
I think like that's a big hurdle for people as well, especially if the role that you're applying for is public facing.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Because if you've come out of school or sixth form or college or even university and you've talked to your friends, you've talked to the teachers, it is different when you're speaking to members of the public.
You can't say to them, yo, like you're not talking to your friends. You know when your mum's telling you off, like, don't talk to me like I'm one of your friends. Yeah. You know what I mean? You have to change the language for who you're speaking to.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And also, you're not Kayode, or I wouldn't be Liam in that situation. Yeah. You are somebody who works for Charlton Athletic, for example. And if somebody's got a problem, guess who they're bringing that to? They're going to bring that to you. So it's almost like thinking about what you're going to do in them situations where things might be a bit awkward and you might have to speak to somebody who's a bit angry, perhaps. Yeah. Try not to think of that as they're personally attacking you. Yeah. I don't know if you had any experiences of that in that role, or
yeah, so not necessarily I mean, I guess one thing quickly touched on Charlton. I think one of the reasons I was not happy working there because I was working for Charlton Athletic in a superstore when I wanted to be working for Charlton Athletic on the pitch as a footballer. So I had the wrong role. They gave me the wrong role. I'm supposed to be on the pitch, but I think I have come across angry customers before, not just even into some of the jobs. Even when I, for example, run events for the business I do. You know, if someone buys a ticket and they're not happy, for example, it's not necessarily customers always right, because sometimes the customer's definitely left. Like, they are not always right at all. They're wrong, left, everything. But it's just showing that you understand where they're coming from and trying to help them out where possible. And if they're just really not happy, if you can offer a refund, just offer a refund. Let's just part ways. You know what I mean? There's no point them being unhappy and you keeping the money kind of thing as the company or you personally, whatever role you're in. So, yeah, I've definitely faced. In my mind, I'm getting flashbacks of people who've been angry. Like I can see the spit in their mouth right now, and so I'm like, "Well, you must have had some angry customers in Waitrose." So actually, maybe not. You're in Waitrose. Everyone's happy in Waitrose.
You'd be surprised at Christmas when people can't get hold of a sprout because
one sprout
because you've sold out of Brussels sprouts that particular day, and you know you've ruined Christmas.
Ruined Christmas.
Yeah, there's some interesting conversations that you have with people in that, but I think like. Again, it's just keeping calm, realising, you know, trying to do as much as you can for that person, explain the situation, and then, just try and be as helpful as you possibly can. But like you say, you can't please everyone, unfortunately. Yeah. I suppose equally as being in a role, it's having that resilience to keep trying if you're not quite in the place that you want to be as well. So I know we spoke recently on some other episodes about applying for jobs and interviews and things like that, and it's equally having that kind of dedication to hang on in there and realise that, you know, the opportunity that you haven't been given so far just hasn't been right for you yet. Yeah.
You see that key word, yet.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think people use the wrong F. Like they use the wrong F. They think it's failure, but it's actually feedback. Mm-hmm. So just, you know, substitute the F from failure to feedback, and then you look at it in a different perspective. So be like, okay, cool, what can I learn from this? One of my favourite quotes is by a guy called, what's his name again? Kayode Damali. Oh yeah, that's it, by Kayode Damali, which is, you live, you learn, you live again. That's it, you live, a mistake could happen, you learn, cool, you live again. It's not over. It's not over until it's actually generally over. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, and I think that there's quite a lot of nervousness about making mistakes as well. And you got to remember that everybody makes a mistake, from the CEO to the person.
What do they say? Have the confidence as a 5-year-old in a Batman t-shirt. That's what, you know what I mean. You need to have that level of confidence.
Well, it's absolutely right, because if you think like with kids, like they're bold as brass, aren't they? And
you got one, right?
Yeah, I've got a 3-year-old, and if he does, like, he tips his cup of water out because he's kind of experimenting, seeing what's right and wrong.
You learn about gravity, just testing Newton's theory, right?
Like it's like, what did you do that? Yeah, I did. But he said he like admits it, but then he's learning like, do you know why we're not doing that? And it's kind of like living through that experience. You know, it might not be the flavour of the season, but if you're able to learn from those mistakes, it's going to help you to be stronger, better, and develop even further to where you want to go.
But enough, like you said, but as children, it's easy for them to do that. But as adults, when we get older, we don't like making mistakes. I don't know, man. Like I'm the same. Like we're all the same, man. It's like no one. If you have a choice, make a mistake or not make a mistake, you'll always choose. And you don't want to make a mistake, but they do happen.
I think you're right, but I think it's realizing that sooner or later you are going to make a mistake. I remember watching an old episode of Scrubs where one of the new ER nurses or doctors was so scared of killing somebody, but they were getting so many other things wrong because that's all they were thinking about not making that ultimate mistake. And it was quite a clever episode because they weren't right for the role and they got let go and everything. But because they were so focused on worrying about somebody passing away at their own cost or at their own hands, that they made horrendous other mistakes which wasn't able. And I suppose the point that I'm trying to get to there is at some point you're going to make a mistake. It might be a little one, it might be a big one. It's how you deal with that and how you learn from it. It's not to say that it's good that you make mistakes, so don't go out and make mistakes on purpose.
Liam said that I can make mistakes. Thanks, Liam. So you're not saying that, just clarify.
No, so not that at all. But just realising that sooner or later a mistake will happen, but it's how you react and how you respond and how you learn from that, which I think is important. And equally, if you make a mistake, hold your hands up as well, because there's nothing worse than trying to wriggle out of it or push the blame on somebody else. Like, just be honest. And
even though we said kids are good at resilience, kids are not good at that part. like Liam Jr., did you drop that mug on the floor? No. There's no one else. In fact, let me give you an example. I've got a niece, right? So she's the only kid in the house, yeah? There's drawing on the wall, okay? Like kids drawing. Did you draw that? No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. Okay, it wasn't you, okay. There's no other kids like, it must have been you. Like, it's so funny that I couldn't even shout. I was like,
we learn it at an early age, don't we?
Yeah, so hold your hands up, you're saying. Especially when it's so obvious that it's you. Like, so what can we learn from kids? They're good at resilience. What can we also learn is that they're not good at owning up, right?
Yeah, and I suppose you've got to prove that wrong, or you've got to prove that you've grown into that adult and you've been able to potentially own up to some things that you might have done. So have you got any other examples that you wanted to share with the audience, Kayode?
Yeah, so another tough time I had during work was actually when I was vice president of my students' union. We didn't necessarily get on as a team for whatever reason, and because of that, the time off it wasn't the best. So it's a tough one because, I don't know, man, I just never had the best of times, you get what I mean? But I guess what kind of helped me get through is that I know that it was temporary. It was only a year in office. It was only one term. And if it was a job for indefinite, then maybe I would have to reconsider, what I've had to do. But because I knew that, right, I just got to get through to July. Just get through to July and it'll be over kind of thing. So because I kind of knew there was an exit, it's like, right, what can I, while I'm here, how can I make the most of it kind of thing? You just got to get through what you have to get through now. And so I think that definitely helped me, that, understanding that there is, I don't want to say light at the end of the tunnel like it was awful. It wasn't awful, but I'm just using an example whereby, sometimes when a job's, especially if they're not indefinite, that, you just got to ride it out, just grit your teeth and ride through it.
I think that, there might be some people out there thinking, I hate working with one of my colleagues because you just don't get on, and equally, it's a big world out there, and you're not going to get on with everyone.
I was, in fact, funny enough, a few weekends ago, I was having a meal at a lovely Japanese restaurant. Was it Japanese? I can't remember which cuisine, but it's a nice cuisine. And I shouldn't have been there. I just kind of hitchhiked. But these three girls I'm friends with, they do a weekly catch up, or monthly, whatever. And they go around the table and like, how's work, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I don't know why, I only came because I bumped into them in town a few minutes ago. They said, what are you doing now? They're going for a meal. Okay, cool, I'm coming, kind of thing. And it's funny, they all had a story of a colleague they didn't get on with. Right. And it's just so like, it just goes to show that nearly a lot of different companies, it is going to happen, and what they do is very healthy in the sense that they discuss it with each other, almost like a mastermind, and we each gave this person advice as to what they do to go through it. So I guess maybe what I'm trying to say, which I'm only realizing as I'm saying this, is speak to people about it. Don't rant to the people in the company itself, but who can you speak to outside who can give you a friendly ear, who can give you some good advice, who can you share what you're feeling with and to take forwards?
Yeah, and by venting, you kind of...
Venting, okay. Do you know what she...
But by venting, like, to somebody who's external.
External, yes.
They'll give you, whether that be a friend or a family member or whoever it happens to be, they'll hopefully give you some kind of honest kind of feedback on, yeah, you're right, or actually,
you could have been wrong.
You could have been wrong.
You got a problem.
Yeah.
You know what it is? If there's 10 people and they all have the same problem with you, then maybe you're the problem. I mean, maybe you are the problem.
Might give you some areas to develop on.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think that's a great way. And also, by venting in that way, you kind of avoid that pressure cooker situation where you're just going to explode after sooner or later. So I think that's a great tip.
Maybe that's why. Maybe this is why I can't have a job. Like, oh, I'm gonna flip a table. Like my thing. I always joke about with like, I'll send in an email. Do you know who you're talking? Like, I don't know, man. It's like.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's a fine balance, and you're going to have to find a solution for yourself. But perhaps, hopefully, some of the advice you've taken from this episode will help you out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Kayode, I know you've got some more questions through some of the engagement you've had on Instagram.
So this person's asked, I've got holidays booked for... Oh, I like this one, sorry. I've got holidays booked for next year and a job interview next week. Should I tell them?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you go into an interview and you've already got holiday booked, they have to honour it. So, yeah.
But would it hinder you getting a job though?
It shouldn't do. It shouldn't have an effect. So yeah, I mean, that's the best situation, because if you don't tell them, let's say it's in 3 weeks' time and you're employed and they expect you to start on the first day of holiday, what are you going to do? Or
in fact, one thing that really threw me as again, I'll keep talking about the transition from being a young person to working is massive. So I assumed, right, I took my second year of uni, I took up a role as head football coach for this football club, and it was great. We had like Wayne Rooney's son come at the time. It was great. Like, it's proper wealthy people. Do you know what I mean? And it got to some holidays, and I just thought I'd go back to London. They're like, "Wait, we've employed you." I didn't realize they employed me for the whole year. I just assumed it was termed. I just assumed. I was just naive. I thought I'd just go back home for the summer and come back. But they're like, no.
Because they were expecting pre-season or five-a-side.
Obviously, you're working 40 hours. You're working a full-time, not full-time, but
the contracted hours.
Yeah, but I assumed it stopped when it came to holidays. So that threw me. I was like, oh, what? I'm expected to stay in the holidays? Like, I didn't realise. So
yeah, I suppose it's clearing stuff like that up at the interview. I think it's kind of having those expectations set, and yeah, but like, if for the question, certainly kind of let your interviewer know that. And
funny enough, the reason is because I was expecting to go abroad doing Camp America actually, so I wasn't even going to be in the country. I was saying to them, well, I had to quit. I just assumed they'll let me go. I didn't even think it's something to discuss. So you're right. You do need to. I should have said to them, look, yeah, I can be your head football coach, but I already planned to go to America for 3 months. But like, hang on a minute, but what are we gonna do? I was naive. I just didn't know.
I suppose like the thing is, if you don't let them know, and
I just took the flight,
and well, you're probably going to end up getting the sack, aren't you? But if you don't let them know and you've got it booked and paid for, and then you tell them once you're in the business, then because you've not let them know, they're well within their rights to say no. Like, you've not let us know that you've got this holiday. I'm sure there'll be, like, if there's the possibility to let you have it, fantastic, they might do. But if they've got other people on, they need you there, then they're well within their right to say no.
You're making me feel guilty now, man. I feel like I let down a lot of talented people who could have been footballers. Well, we have another question though. Instagram's coming in hot right now. I feel like I'm being micromanaged. What can I do?
I think it's difficult with when you are being micromanaged, and examples similar.
Do you want to explain what micromanaging is, just in case some people don't?
Yes, so micromanaging is when you've been asked to do a job, but your manager will come over every 5 seconds and be like, oh, just don't forget to do that, don't forget to do this next. So they'll literally be treating you a little bit like a puppet, and they'll be not giving you much what's the word?
Leeway, freedom.
Yeah, much leeway, or allowing you to think for yourself and to take the initiative. So back in the supermarket days, I had quite a number of micromanagers who, from one of my higher managers down to some of the lower ones, and they'd come around and then inspect what you were doing and give you pointers all the time, and that does get wearing. And my tip and advice on that would be, again, similar to what I said earlier, is try and preempt what you think they're going to ask you to do, and then if you've got everything squared away, if they're going to ask you to, from my experience, fill up the apples next, but they're already full, then they're going to think, oh yeah, Liam knows what he's doing, and then slowly they'll give you that trust, and then they'll go and micromanage somebody else.
But why do you think they micromanage people? Why do you think people micromanage them?
It's the idea of having that control, isn't it? And I mean, when I became a manager back in the supermarket days, it was difficult to let go of what influence I had, because I had, I was responsible for a department, and if that department didn't look good, or if the shelves weren't full, then it was down to me. So so psychologically in that scenario, if I haven't told my guys to do that, then it's not going to get done. But actually, you've got to give those people that bit of trust to learn themselves, and although you might get, somebody might come and tell you what's not looking good about the section at that management level, it's not necessarily you that's being criticised, it's the whole department and it's the whole team. So I suppose from a manager's point of view, they're just trying to get the best performance out of everybody. But equally, to get the best performance, you've got to let people learn from themselves and find those solutions themselves as well.
Interesting. All right then, another question. My employer continuously asks me to work unpaid, overtime / through lunch. What do I do?
Refuse. It's difficult, that one, because on the odd occasion, I suppose it depends on yourself, but if you're working in any shape or form, then really you should be being paid. So I suppose it's having an honest conversation and suggested, if you want me to do that, absolutely can, but I'm going to need to be paid overtime, or I'm going to need to, have a new contract set up, because you should be paid for what you do work-wise. And that goes for whether you work in an apprenticeship or any other job.
Do you know what really annoys me about that? Is you can go to a job, right? You can arrive at 9:01 and everyone's annoyed. You're late. But they don't know that last time you stayed there until 6 the day before. It's you can stay late and it's okay, cool, you stayed an hour over. But the minute you're a minute late, then everyone wants to get on your back. So, but you're right. People should be paid if they are doing overtime.
If you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe to be the first to hear about new episodes when they're being released. And share this episode with anyone you can in any way that you can.
We'd love to hear your feedback and suggestions for other topics that you think we should cover. Let us know by using the hashtag #TheRightRoute.
We are now joined by Kismet, Head of Skills Development for national training provider Qube Learning. Hi to Kismet and welcome to The Right Route. How are you today?
Not too bad, thank you. You all right?
Yeah, not too bad. In this episode, we're talking about resilience in the workforce. So I was wondering if you could just explain to listener what that means to you.
To me, resilience, I think it's not something you just have. It's something you acquire through your time within work. And it's about, not taking everything personally, but understanding obviously that while you're at work, you need to be doing what the employer wants you to do and what they expect you to do. So if they do give you maybe some critique or some criticism, it's not to be personal. They just want you to do the best job you can do whilst you're there with them.
One thing I love what you said there, Kismet, is that it's not something that you're necessarily born with, it's something that you develop or something you learn.
Definitely.
How do you think, as a young person then, coming into workplace, 16, 17, 18 years old, or however old they are, how can they develop that resilience then?
Do you know what I think nowadays, and that's going to make me sound really old, and I'm
not at all.
No, but I started working when I was 14.
14? What was your first job?
My very first job was really exciting. I packed herbal tea bags.
Oh, you can see her smiling right now. She can see her smiling with the herbal tea bags.
Literally, it was piecework. I got paid 2p a box. And we had to have 10 tea bags in a box. Literally. Okay. And we had to do crate loads. And there was a group of us from school. We did it every Friday night, 6 till 9.
You had a wild Friday night at school.
It was amazing. But then from there, I come from a very small town. And I think I joke with my son now that I've worked in pretty much every establishment. the fish and chip shop, the jewellers.
I've worked behind a bar, a pub, yeah. That's what I'm saying to Liam. I've done a pub before.
Yeah, literally, I was pretty much a pot washer for my entire year 11 at high school. I worked Saturdays, I worked Sundays, and I worked Friday evenings washing dishes.
And so in your first role then, packing the tea bags, what company was it? Twinnings or something like that, was it?
Oh, nothing that posh.
Nothing that posh, okay.
No.
So when you were young, you're 14 years old, putting tea bags in boxes, what were any challenges that you had to show resilience for? Like, what hard times did you have?
I think really it's kind of like the repetitive nature of that particular work, because everyone goes to school, you're going to go to school from about 9 till about 3, you get your breaks, it's all really structured and you know exactly what's coming. But when you're getting paid to do a particular task and it's just that one task and you think, oh, it's only 3 hours, you try packing tea bags for 3 hours.
If I see another tea bag again, is it like that?
It wasn't even nice tea. I don't personally drink tea anyway, but it was like some sort of herbal, fruity concoctions that just smell dusty, basically.
Yeah, and I think you're right there, because when young people are at school, might have maths period 1, science period, there's variety. And what do they say? Variety is the spice of life, right? Yeah. But once you go into the world of work, you're typically doing that one role which you've been employed for.
Exactly. And some roles are obviously different. You do get, my role was really, really varied, but I've done other roles in the past where you literally are given one task to do, and that is the task.
So then how do you get over that then? How do you get the resilience to how did you push through then that repetitiveness of the job? Or what can young people do if they do feel they're getting bored of doing that one thing over and over again?
Well, for me, I've always been really motivated to work. I didn't come from a very well-off family, and, it was a case of if I went and got a job, I could have my own money. Granted, we're not talking a lot of money packing tea bags for 2p.
2p a box, right?
2p a box. But, it's like, I remembered I did some overtime during a summer holidays at the pub. And I think I ended up like £30 for basically 2 weeks worth of work. I was made up. It just, the sense of achievement as well as that independence from having a pay packet and actually getting a pay packet to know that actually that's my money. I've earned it. Yeah, there's been some naff days in there. And I could have been out doing stuff with my friends, but I've persevered and I've actually got something to show for it, and that's the wage. And it doesn't always necessarily have to be about the wage, but it's the confidence you achieve from being in a workplace. Everyone can go to school, but if you've never had a job, you don't know what it is to be in the workplace.
Sure.
And I've spoken to graduates that have never physically had a part-time job because they've been
graduates from university. Never had a part-time job.
No, and I interviewed one for an apprenticeship role, and very luckily for him, his parents were able to fund him throughout his entire education. But he's got to the age of 22, and he's now applying for an apprenticeship role on the apprenticeship minimum wage, but he couldn't bring any life skills to the table, and I'm not expecting you to be a DAV student or to have a gap year or anything snazzy like that, but just to say, well, actually I've done this role for a summer, and I worked in a pub, or I worked at a camp, or I worked at a holiday park, and then I've done this, because it shows your adaptability. And employers like to know that they can maybe throw some things at you and know that you're going to be adaptable enough to overcome that and to just get on board with the task.
I do remember at uni, there were some people who I went uni with who've never worked. I used to have to work at uni all the time,
My
but some
second
people
day of
didn't.
uni, I went and got a job at the student bar, and I worked there until I left Halls Residence.
Really? But one thing I did like what you picked up on is that even though you were packing the tea bags for 2p a box.
This is going to be a running thing now, isn't it?
Should we call this episode #teabags?
No, don't. I don't like tea.
So one thing you said is that you it's almost like you had the end picture in mind, because you said you're looking forward to £30 every 2 weeks, whatever it was.
Something like that.
Do you think that helped in looking at the end goal almost? So even if you were packing the tea bags, having that goal is
Definitely.
Help you push through?
Hopefully a lot of us are in jobs we really enjoy. I really enjoy my job. I really like my job, and I have no problem spending my time of my life working, because I'm quite proud to do so. But you need to know that it's not all about work. So if you're doing your task, but then at the end of it, it's going to be a means to something else, whether it's that pair of shoes, or you're going to get that ticket you want, or it's just saving up for holiday, but that you've done that, it's kind of then okay that you're spending all your time doing this.
I think it's, in this day and age, we kind of Like you said, that we're used to seeing that end products on social media of this is what this job involves, and it's the glitz and glam and all the nicer things that we perhaps imagine, the shiny stuff, absolutely. But when you get put into that first role, you have to almost build that trust with that employer as well, because you're not going to be, if you go and get some work experience with a music studio, for example, you're like the one we're recording in today, you're not necessarily going to be let loose on all of the expensive equipment to start with. They're going to slowly introduce new skills and new bits of newer exciting tasks after you've earned that trust and that respect that you are going to do what it is that they need you to do.
Definitely. It's all about, you need to be able to build relationships, and it's, I always joke with young people going, the first 2 weeks of a job are terrible. And it's not to say because the job's terrible, but for anyone starting a new job, you've gone probably from your comfort zone, be it an old job or no job, to an environment where you're suddenly surrounded by lots of people. There's a dynamic you don't understand. There's inter office politics or do's and don'ts. All the little intricacies that, because you haven't been there up until this point, you don't know. You don't know if you should be using that mug because it says Janet on it, when actually Janet down the hall's getting really mad at you.
And your name's not Janet.
You don't know that maybe, when it's someone's birthday, you should write in the card and put £1 in for a bunch of flowers. You don't know that. And that's why it can be quite...
You spoke about this on previous episodes too. As a young person into workplace, you're all of a sudden going from maybe being the oldest at school to maybe the youngest in the workplace. And it's like... You might be used to socialising with people your age, but all of a sudden you're working with Janet now. You've never met a Janet before.
Janet's lovely.
I'm sure Janet is lovely.
But you don't know Janet, and that's the problem.
So one thing you mentioned at the beginning is that in terms of resilience, you said that you mustn't not take it personal. What did you mean by that?
At the end of the day, if I employ you to do a job, I expect you to do that job. If you're not doing that job properly, it's not about getting mad and shouty at you, but it's about helping you understand why you're not doing that job and giving you the tools and the confidence or the resources you need in order to overcome that. But, we're all human. So if I turn around and went, oh, Liam, you're not doing it right, I don't like it, it's quite possible his feelings could be hurt.
Would take it personal.
He would. And then that's when behaviours can change, and maybe the most excited, enthusiastic member of staff then becomes a bit negative. It can breed to lots of other things. So it's about... Whilst you're at work, it's about your work performance. It's not about you outside of work and the person you are in the wider world, but it's about your employer wanting to make sure they get the best.
How do you not take it personal? If you're saying, like you said, Liam, you're not doing it, how do you not take it personal?
It's difficult, and I can tell you a couple of times. I remember my very first job out of uni, and I got pulled aside because I didn't realise I was being too direct with a senior member of staff, and I'd upset her.
Too direct in what sense?
Well, the way she was trying to tell me to do something, I didn't think was the most logical way, and I was probably a little bit too vocal in expressing my opinion, and I'd actually upset her. I had no idea I'd done that, and I felt awful, the fact that I had upset this lady who had only been nice, and she was doing what she was told, and I was the problem. So, and that's... You kind of almost have to have those reality checks. They're not nice, they're not pleasant. And I bet everyone can tell of an experience where they've been pulled up for doing something they shouldn't have been doing, but they maybe didn't realise the ramifications of what they were doing. And it's not nice, but that's something I always stick with me. I was 21 when that happened, and I'm now 35, and I still refer back to it, because you need to be aware of what you're doing and how you're saying things, because other people can take it in a significantly different manner.
What do they say? It's not what you say, it's how you say it, right?
That is completely true. You can be saying the most nicest of things in terms of the word content, but if your body language and your tone and everything else is off kilter, it won't work, and it won't come across in maybe the meaning you actually meant it to.
I think having that positive attitude as well is so important, because, like, from an employer's point of view, like you say, you're not there to make somebody feel small, or you're not there to kind of have a go at somebody. You're trying to get the output of what that job is asking for, and it's like, in the nicest possible way, it's getting over ourselves, isn't it? Like, and not taking it personally, as you said to start with. So yeah,
definitely.
So if we had a question earlier from Kayode's Instagram of somebody said, my manager keeps getting on at me, and everyone for no particular reason. Have you got any kind of advice to what somebody should do if they're in that position where the manager just keeps on at somebody for no particular reason?
Well, by nature, I'm probably a little direct.
Are you?
So
I can, you know what? I can't see that in you yet, though. Like, nah. Yeah, she's here smiling. I hear happy, smiley.
it doesn't show at all. You know, those sorts of situations are difficult because really what you need to do is that, you know, you need to have that conversation, and, you know, they can be filled with anxiety, you could be scared, you know, it's not, again, it's one of these unpleasant conversations. No one likes to have an unpleasant conversation, but sometimes you have to have them. So my advice would be to calmly and politely talk to the manager and try and see if everything's all right, because you've noticed that they seem to be doing everything wrong, and, you know, what is it they're doing wrong and what can they do? So if they kind of almost start the conversation with what can I do, because obviously I feel I'm doing something wrong, hopefully the manager might then open up, or the manager then may see that actually, well, yeah, I had a go at them yesterday, and I got on about that, and it's like, oh, actually, maybe I have, because again, the manager could be completely unaware, because in their mind, they're the manager, so therefore it's do, rather than lead them and teach them and show them what they should be doing.
I like that as well, switching it on to, you're not saying, you keep having a go at me, what can I do to help or to improve my performance, so, you know, we don't have these conversations in the future. I think that's a great...
taking ownership, right?
Yeah, great tactic.
Yeah.
Is there anything in your jobs, like you mentioned a lot of jobs previously, so it's like...
all sorts of jobs.
Yeah, so you mentioned your 14-year-old, your 21-year-old. What about now? Is there anything now in your job now that you find like you have to show resilience for?
Oh, wow, probably, definitely. Well, I was lucky enough to recently get a new job.
Congratulations.
So my job role changed recently, and that's kind of put me at a different, it's put me like a tier above than what I was previously working at. So I'm still kind of getting to grips with what's expected of that level of staff, really. But it's, you know, resilience for me, it's just about communicating with my manager. I talk to my manager pretty much every day, probably not quite every day, but every other day easily. You know, I have a really good working relationship with him. He knows what I'm doing. And more importantly, I know what is expected of me from my manager's point of view. So, you know, I like to be clear. You know, I always say, I'll do anything you want me to do, but I need to know what it is you want me to do. So as long as, you know, it's not about sort of clear, precise instructions really, but I'm quite black and white like that. So if you want me to do it, not a problem, but I'd like to know in detail what it is you want me to do. And that's just so I know I can go and achieve that, and I can put energy into it, and I can make it happen, because obviously no one likes to fail. Yeah. And I don't have to turn around to him and go, actually, I didn't do it. But
if the things aren't clear what he says for you to do, how would you overcome that? Or what would you do? Because you said you clearly like it when things are black and white, no 50 shades of grey, just black and white, right?
Yeah.
So if it is blurred, how would you cope with that?
I'm quite tenacious, so it's literally a case of I'm a dog with a bone. I will keep asking my questions until I am happy that the answers I've been given answer my questions in order to achieve this task. Okay. And fundamentally, if that then doesn't happen, the default is to kind of think around it, and I think it should be done like A, B, and C, and then that's what I'll do. If that's then not what the required outcome is at the end of it, obviously that's another conversation, you know, and I'm happy to take on, you know, the guidance. But at that point, you know, it's a case of like, well, I did ask, but you didn't tell me.
Yeah. So I love what you said, dog with a bone, being tenacious. So is that key then? It's like, if you're not happy with something, to really ask questions to get the answer from, rather than sitting there being dissatisfied. Oh,
definitely. I know it sounds exceptionally cliche, and hopefully, you know,
cliche is good. We like
cliche is good, but you spend too much of your life at work to be doing a job you don't like.
Of course.
You know, I was very lucky enough to work with a company a couple of years ago before, unfortunately, I got made redundant, and I honestly think had that company had I not been made redundant, I would probably still be there. I love the company, the ethos, the staff, You know, they treated their staff exceptionally well. I went abroad with them multiple
Where did you go?
times. I went to Tenerife, I went to Portugal. They're a German company. I went and worked in Germany for 4 weeks.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
I don't speak German. Just putting it out there now.
Okay,
I don't
cool,
speak
that's all right.
German.
I do, a little bit.
You know, I got to
Ambition.
work on a TV commercial. You know, the opportunities that company afforded me were tremendous.
So this is big then. So you've got laid off from your previous job. So right now you're in a position where a lot of young people are, like, you know, unemployed. So where was your resilience then to go out and get a new job? Like, how was you able to, if you loved it that much, surely you must have felt some type of way when they let you go, right?
Literally, I got made redundant a week before I returned off maternity leave.
Oh no.
So-
a week, let me think, a week before.
So I hadn't actually been at work for like the 9 months prior because I'd been on maternity leave. But before I'd actually gone, I'd been working with the company 4.5 years.
So then how do you get the resilience to go and get a new job? Like how?
Do you know what? It's kind of like...
How was you feeling down at the time or?
Yeah, I was devastated. You know, all these people and people that I still keep in contact with today, and I'm going back like over 10 years, people I still keep in contact with. You know, I've been to their weddings, we do christenings, you know, family events, and I consider them to be family. I met them and connected with them through this company. So the fact that the whole reason why I would be connecting with these people didn't exist anymore was probably, for me, more painful than losing the job, because obviously you don't ever leave a job, you leave people.
True. So what tips would you give to young people in that situation and getting laid off from a job? What tips would you give them to be resilient?
You've just got to be all over it. You know, for me, not working wasn't an option at the time. I'd literally just had a baby. I was lucky enough that my husband was working, but we were a 2-income family. And for me not to work, it just wasn't an option. So, you know, I did go and sign on. I did go to the job centre. I did have to go and do my appointment every week. I did have to go and do the jam making course that they put me on. You know, and I don't make jam. I've never made jam since. And I don't want to make jam.
So you don't like tea, you don't like jam?
No, I like jam.
You like
I
jam?
don't want to
Okay.
make it.
You don't want to make it?
I just don't want to
okay.
make it. But at the end of the day, I knew I had to work. So for me, it was never an option. And I went for jobs and I didn't get them. I went for jobs that I was sure I was going to get. You know, I'd just been made redundant. I was a retail manager. I got this experience behind me. I'd got these qualifications. And I was like, I am going to get it. I didn't get it.
I've been in that situation a few times as well. You know?
Wow, what am I not doing?
So with some of our listeners who might be potentially in that phase of looking for their first job, and they're sending their CVs out and either getting no responses or they're going to interviews and being unsuccessful, have you got any kind of tips and advice on what they can do?
Definitely. Always alter, amend your CV for the job you're going for. You know, yes, obviously have an overall CV that's kind of got all your information on. Should it be longer than one double-sided A4 page? In my opinion, no. Should it have a picture on it? In my opinion, no. I'm not an expert, but I've been dealing with apprenticeship recruitment for many years now, and they don't look at the pictures. So, you know, look at what the job description's telling you. Look at what the advert's telling you. Is there some language that's within the advert that features or almost features in your CV that you can tweak? Because literally, when an employer gets a hold of your CV, it's less than 5 seconds and it either goes to the reject pile or the progress pile. You know, they don't labour over every single word, so it needs to be concise, summative, to the point, and factual. Don't go lying on CVs, people. It never works out well.
So you don't lie, did you say?
Yeah, don't lie on your CV. It doesn't work.
So I suppose, like, if somebody is making those amendments and they're doing everything that they think is right and they're following your advice on that, but they still just can't get their foot in the door.
Always, if you get to the point of where you're invited for an interview, make sure you arrive on time, not half an hour early, because that puts people off. As someone that interviews, if I have an interview booked for 11 o'clock and I get told at 10:30 they're already here, I don't like it.
Really? So
No,
it's half an hour too much?
Half an hour for me is too much.
15 minutes?
15 minutes. I think anywhere between 15 and sort of 7 minutes if we're going to get really precise on it. You know,
15 minutes early.
that is, to me, that's perfect. But if you get to the point of where you're actually having the interview, make sure you've done some research on the company. And I don't mean that the fact that you can recount every single historical detail that company may have gone through, or who is, who's previously been listed on companies' houses, anything like that, but literally just like 3 or maybe 4 key points about the company that you can either bring up in conversation or you can ask a question about. You should always go in with questions. I know it sounds, that when people say, have you got any questions? And then they go, oh, no. Have at least one, just something, just so you can kind of continue that engagement and further build that rapport.
You spoke about this in the previous episode with Liz, and I love what Liz said. She said that even if you don't have a question, she said that you should say to them, I did have a question, but you've covered it now, or something like that. Like what she said, something like that, to really like flip it to say that.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think it's important. But then after the interview, if unfortunately you're then not successful for that job, don't worry. That is not the last job in the world. You are going to find another job. There are going to be even more amazing jobs. I look for jobs, not for myself, but as part of what I do every day. And the breadth of jobs that I've found is just astounding. So there's always going to be another job, but ask for feedback. If you've gone through the interview process and they've actually interviewed you and that you unfortunately then get a regret, don't be afraid to say, look, obviously, thank you very much for your time, and I'd like please keep hold of my CV. People like to say that. Is there any feedback you can give me on why I wasn't successful? And again, it can be the beginning of a bit of an awkward conversation because you're already feeling probably a little bit hurt and dejected because you didn't get the job and that you've followed it so far in the process to then get a no at pretty much the last point. But they may then say, well, actually, they may give you a whole host of feedback that you might not even be aware of, because how self-aware are we? You're nervous, it's an interview, and your hands are probably going everywhere.
You might sneeze at the beginning or something like that.
Exactly, or you might have tripped through the door. Yeah. I've done that before.
Spilt the mug.
I've walked into an interview and tripped through the door.
I suppose it's as hard as it is for people, it is kind of not having that personal kind of feeling about it, isn't it? It's trying to be step back and kind of take a breath.
And that's what I've done badly in the past. So what do you do? Like, for example, you said to ask for a bit of feedback. And in the past, when I've done that, they said they can't give individual bits of feedback. What would you do then?
To me, I would probably kind of go back and be like, right, well, whoever interviewed me, I said, surely is, let's go with Janet, because Janet's here and she's in the building. And just say, look, obviously I spent half an hour, 20 minutes, 40 minutes with Janet. Is she not able just to provide me a quick, can I not just, organise a quick 5-minute phone call? And I appreciate probably what I'm saying it is not something that, someone younger who's never had a job may do. Obviously
might be a bit shy too.
I've been through jobs, we've all gone for jobs that we didn't get and been disappointed, and we've all gone for jobs that we got, which is amazing. But if it's your very first job and you don't get a yes, if you don't want to ask for the feedback, it's not the end of the world, but you then need to maybe take a moment within yourself to think, right, I didn't get the job. Did anything go wrong? Does anything kind of, did I maybe not look at them in the eye enough? Did I not shake their hand? Did I not answer the question? Did I say, employers hate it when you say, yeah. It's like, it's not yeah, it's yes. Let's have some clear dictation when speaking to a potential employer, because the more you kind of and yeah at them, that doesn't show you your best self.
Especially if you're going to be customer facing. So we talked a lot about, being brave and asking for feedback and things like that. But what if you're that kind of person that is a bit more introverted and like might bottle something up? Is there any kind of, have you got any ideas or experience of helping people who perhaps are a little bit averse to doing that?
I think if you are maybe slightly more introverted and you're not going to be the person to call the employer and ask for feedback, it's important you talk to someone about it. My younger brother got recently made redundant, and he went through a whole process to get a job. He didn't get it, and he was absolutely devastated. But he is really shy. There's no other way about it. He's really shy. But trying to speak to him with a group of people is never going to work. So it's, if you know that you're not going to be that person, it's important that you find a person and you talk to them about it.
And it's almost asking for that open and honest, like, as much as your mum and dad might be like, you're great at everything. It's
Mums and dads do that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm the same with my child. You know, my child's amazing until he's not.
Yeah.
Well, no, he's not.
Okay. I'll try to prop him up a bit more, but fair
no,
enough.
he is, but not until, you know, he's a 10-year-old boy, so that's pretty much says it all. But yeah, mums and dads, they can be a little bit biased, obviously, towards the individuals. So, you know, if you have an older sibling or maybe a cousin, you know, your best mate, it doesn't need to be a really deep conversation, but it's important, I think, to actually have a conversation, you know, because whether it's a rejection from a job or something else, it doesn't do anyone any good to hold it inside them. You know, we need to, you know, sharing is caring. And they may be able to provide some perspective on it that you hadn't even thought of.
What did they say? A problem shared is a problem halved.
Exactly. And, you know, there's no harm in, you know, talking to someone about it. It might just make you feel better.
But in fact, sometimes a problem shared isn't a problem halved. You say it to the wrong person, a problem shared is a problem multiplied. You know what I mean? You've got to be careful.
Well, yeah, you've got to be careful who you speak
true.
to. Yeah. You know, pick someone that you feel comfortable with and you trust.
I suppose it's kind of having that honesty with them, and you might be embarrassed for that first part of your conversation, but once you've got over that, it's like what we were talking about earlier in the episode. It's like having that opportunity to vent and not just let it all kind of bobble off under the surface.
I'm a great one for venting. I ring up people going, I don't need to talk to you, I'm just venting. And then it's like blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh, I feel so much better now. Because it's out. You're not it's not all whirling around in your head. And then, you know, and the more you overthink things, the more they can expand and they can actually move away from what really happened. So, you know, something may have happened, but then all of a sudden it's massive and it's like, whoa, it's not the end of the world. You know, let's pare it back down to actually what happened and, you know, be realistic with it. I would just say no one expects you to be an expert. You know, if you are going for your very first role and you apply for a job and then amazingly you get it, you know, there is no shame whatsoever in letting people know that this is your first job role, because actually the people that you will then maybe start working with, they would actually be quite excited to impart some of their experience, their knowledge. You know, people love to be mentors to people.
Some people got such an ego, like they just want to say, like, I'm great, let me teach you everything.
Exactly, but you know, and whilst hopefully, you know, you don't absorb that ego, there may be something within, you know, the overall phase of what they're saying that you actually take on board, and you know, you learn a lot from other people.
What do you think about the induction period when young people start a job? Do you think that's key?
Oh, totally. Like I said earlier on, I always think the first 2 weeks of any job are...
You said it's the worst, isn't it?
Well, it's pretty naff, I'm not going to lie.
Naff, what a word, what a great word, naff.
It's naff. But, you know, the induction, because realistically, by the time you have your induction, it's probably not going to be with the person that interviewed you. So it's a brand new person again. You may be with other new people that are starting, and again, brand new to you. So it's really important that you apply yourself to it. And there's always too much information in an induction. We call it kind of information overkill, health and safety, holiday procedures, wage forms. There's a lot of information to take in. So take notes. I'm a big one for taking notes.
Yeah.
And keep your notes. And also as well, make sure you can, if it's possible, obviously some organisations where there are hundreds of people, it wouldn't be. But if you're in a smaller organisation, taking the opportunity to go and introduce yourself. And again, I know that can be hard for people if they don't know people, and it's about having that confidence to walk up.
If you're shy as well, right?
And it's like, hi, my name's Kismet, I've just started here. And that can be tough, but it's actually also really beneficial for them.
I always give the example when I used to work at Charlton Athletic Football Club in the Valley Superstore. I was so shy, I didn't introduce myself to anyone. I tried to just pose as a mannequin, like that's how bad it was, like. But, okay, go on, yeah.
I suppose if you are from that kind of spectrum on being shy and that's a little bit intimidating for you to do that, think of it as just that one person this morning, one person this afternoon, and then build it up from there.
Break it down, yeah. You know, you're not going to have, you know, depending on how long your induction is, you're not going to complete your induction and suddenly be an expert in everything. It's the starting point. This is where from everything that happens is going to start from this one very point. So you just need to take it the moment to enjoy it. And it's about enjoy it. You know, I don't think I probably said that, but you should enjoy it. You know, work should be fun. It's serious, but it should be fun and it should be enjoyable.
And one thing I'd like to ask you is, how do you deal with conflicts of character though? Let's just say you are a particular type of way and someone just, not even by on purpose, they just literally, you rub each other up the wrong way just because he might be loud, you might be quiet. Like, how do you deal with different conflicts of character, especially in the workplace? Everyone's different. Like, how do you cope with that?
Everyone's different, and I think, you know, that's really tricky, and there's so many different sort of examples I could chuck at you now, which I'm not going to, but it's, you know, you need to, conflicts of character happen, and they happen quite frequently, because like you say, it's a group of strangers who probably outside work have nothing in common with one another, having to come collectively together to achieve something, and you're going to have people rubbing people up the wrong way. I always just try to remember the fact that these people I work with some of my, you know, bestest friends, and I'm very lucky to do so. But I also, you know, have worked with other people that I would never speak to them because they are not my person. And I just try to have a sort of reality check with myself. You know, if people do rub me up the wrong way, I'm like, it's all right. They're not my best friend. I don't have to go home to them at the end of the day. They are just someone I have to spend X amount of time working with in order to achieve A. And then I break everything down into sort of tasks. You know, you're never going to like everyone, unfortunately, and not everyone's going to like you. And I know that sounds really horrible.
Yeah, no, it's not nice. Everyone, you want to be liked, right?
You want to be liked, and you know there's nothing wrong with that. And you know, I like to join in. I'm a joiner-inner. You know, I'm from a very large family. I really enjoyed school. I enjoyed the drama club. You know, I did this, I did that, and that's all cool. But some people don't like to do it. But you know, if you come across someone, again, you can have that conversation with them. But really, you just need to remember, it's just work. You don't need to take it outside of work. Just focus on the task at hand. And your task is your job that you need to do.
Thank you so much, Kismet. I hope the listeners taken loads away from that. Thank you for
Thanks
coming.
very much, guys.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kismet. Thank you for coming.
If you have any further questions, don't forget to email us on podcast@qube-learning.co.uk. And don't forget, that's Qube with a Q.